It's New Year's Eve, time to head down to New York City and paint that little town red. Although, unfortunately, it looks like that red is not figurative, it's literal, as there's blood and monsters everywhere. Now the only question is, can you escape, and will they serve a nice beer there?
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly, and this is the last time I'll be saying that this year. 2023 has been a very complicated year, a very wonderful year for Weekly Spooky. Many of you discovered our show this very year. It's also been a very challenging year personally, but I sure am happy to have my spookies to spend some time with. And I sincerely thank you, and I also want to say, although we didn't quite reach it, my New Year's dream of reaching 100 Patreon backers is closer than it has ever been before. We reached 98 backers over the holidays. Thank you so much. I wanted to see 100, but you know what? I'll take it. If 98 is what we got, 98 is what I will be thankful for. So thank you to everybody who signed up for our Patreon over at weeklyspooky.com. Find the Patreon button and click on it. I really do appreciate it. And you don't get nothing for your money. For as little as $1 a month, you get 2 bonus spooky stories every single month. And they're a part of a series, an exclusive Strickfield series that I know you'll enjoy called The Weekend. So, if you want to join up and make my New Year's dream happen at the last possible second, you can go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. But just thank you so much to everybody who's joined up. That's something that's been really important to me. The more we grow the Patreon, the more we secure the future of Weekly Spooky. And it's really important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of you too. So, with all that said, I don't want to waste any more time. We have a very special New Year's story from my good buddy and producer of the program, Dan Wilder, a man who without, there would be no Weekly Spooky. This one's got punk rock, zombies, and the New Year's. And we'll hear it after this. Alien Zombie Punks from Upstate New York by Dan Wilder. Why is it so dark in here? Damn it! I just hit my head on a ceiling? Wait a minute. I think I'm dead. Let's see if I can piece this thing together. We went into the city earlier. It was me, Sloppy Suicide, or Ricky, as he was known before last year, Debbie, and myself. We strolled around the city streets, which were both 10 to 20 degrees warmer than the streets of the nowhere mountain town we left 3 hours earlier, but also inexplicably smelled like chocolate-flavored breakfast cereal. Which was strange, but better than the leather mill runoff that usually tickled our noses with its award-losing scent of sickly sweet putrescence, mixed tenderly with chemicals that were most likely banned everywhere else in the free world. Anyway, earlier our punk rock asses clambered into Sloppy's busted-up conversion van with bags of snacks and beer and began the long drive to the Big Apple. It was already snowing steadily as we tore down the roads leading to the highway entrance that would bring us close to our ultimate destination, Max's Kansas City, for a likely to be unforgettable night of punk music and New Year's revelry. But the chains wrapped securely around the van's tires kept us thankfully on the road no matter how dicey the weather was. Apparently it was in part forgettable because piecing this shit together is getting harder. But I digress. So we walk around, got buzzed, Debbie bought a few trinkets from the street vendors, and eventually we wandered our way over to the venue. After arriving and stepping gracefully over a disturbingly large puddle of puke, we stepped inside. The place was wall-to-wall punks, bullshitting, drinking, being charmingly rude, all of our greatest qualities brought out en masse. We mingled, we drank, we were loud, and soon the opening band lurched to life. I can't for the life of me remember their names, but they sang fast, aggressive songs about alienation, indiscriminate fucking. There might have even been a television cover in there. They were quickly followed by more scruffy, snot-leaking bands that played 40-song sets in the space of 20 minutes apiece. So far, so worth it. The night wore on, but soon the headliners took the stage, coming straight from the wilds of New Jersey. These folks looked for all the world could tell like ghouls returned from the dead to raise unholy hell, and they were louder and more confrontational than all the other acts combined. Wait a minute, ghouls. That triggers something to fire off deep within my brain. The scream started from the back of the club, but it was barely audible over the din of the band and the crowd cheering them on. Occasionally, the band's bass player, a hulking dude with long black hair brushed in front of his face, would smash his instrument into anyone foolish enough to dare to get on stage. Onward they played, bringing us chain gang choruses and 3 angry chords all wrapped around tales of the Kennedy assassination, teenagers from outer space, and satanic werewolves. And subtly, the crowd noise became less and less. I have no idea what compelled me to turn around, but I did. Then quickly regretted it. In the front of the house, someone, or more accurately, something, moved among the crowd swiftly. The being's eyes reflected light not unlike a dog or a cat, which was disquieting enough for sure, but the fact that it was seemingly murdering patrons left and right was undoubtedly its worst feature. I turned back to warn Debbie S. and Debbie, but another shadow being had torn them to pieces before setting to work on the band, who admittedly fought like leather-clad berserkers, but no amount of leather-clad muscle and violence could stop the creatures whose numbers had now swollen to 4. Upon seeing this, I did the only sane thing I could think of. I ran the fuck out of there. I pushed through the throng, slid constantly on barf blood and Lord knows what other bodily secretions before I burst out onto the city street. The heavily falling snow made everything seem like a Christmas card-worthy winter wonderland, but the sky held less enchanting prospects. Far above the skyscrapers, meteors streaked across the sky, leaving violet trails in their wake. I ran on, passing various New Yorkers, staring uncharacteristically in shock as feet away one of the meteors hit the sidewalk, splitting it violently. One of the shadow beings rose from the smoking rubble and immediately attacked a bystander, sending a geyser of blood up into the frigid night sky, the resulting crimson rain freezing to red ice as soon as it collided with the ground in steam-hissing droplets. Shit. Why is this happening? I thought stereotypically as I tore ass on and on without a destination and no other motivation than saving my narrow ass from getting ripped a new one from astro monsters falling from the heavens. A few blocks down, things got much worse. I saw one of the shadow creatures attack a woman, but amazingly it didn't finish her off before it bounded off after a faster-moving victim that ran like a fucking cartoon character over a sheet of ice before regaining his footing and speeding off into the night. Against all common sense, I made my way over to the woman to try and help her. But upon arrival, she was a complete and total mess that looked more like a plate of discarded spaghetti and red sauce than a young lady out for a stroll. Please just hold me, she whimpered. I did, immediately soaking my best t-shirt in blood. What's your name? I asked, mainly because it's what I saw characters do on TV when they encountered similar, deeply shitty situations. Olivia, she muttered weakly. That's a great name, I said unconvincingly. So, what brings you out tonight? What the hell kind of question was that? In response to my quandary, her eyes glazed over cataract white. Suddenly, she sat up straight and shoved me back hard, sending me directly on my ass. A hiss escaped her now blue lips, which were flecked with neon green phlegm. Her gums had retracted to the point where her teeth now appeared ginormous. Speaking of teeth, she began clicking them together rhythmically. Somewhere behind me, I heard a slight commotion, which quickly grew in intensity before a group of... What the hell are these things? Zombies? Yeah, let's go with that. A group of zombies spilled forth from a nearby bodega, their limbs flailing wildly as they moved both fast and clumsily forward. I screamed and possibly peed a tad and booked it like a freight train straight out of hell. I ran until my lungs burned from the freezing air. Then I made the absolutely idiotic decision to stop for a sec and get my shit together. The zombies were on me before you could say George A. Romero. I felt no pain, but darkness soon took me. I came to for the briefest of seconds. The sound of unearthly trumpets filled the sky, and as soon as they arrived, the creatures formed back into meteors and rose into the sky as the strange music became more and more like sirens. Blackness came for me again. And then I woke up to even more blackness and a minor head injury from the aforementioned ceiling. I stared into the darkness before my eyes finally settled on a sliver of light down by my feet. I slid forward on my back and pressed my feet towards the light. Damn. Whatever I pushed up against was cold. Cold, but very forgiving. A door opened, letting harsh, fluorescent light smash into my eyes with wild abandon. I pushed forward and immediately fell onto the rigid tile floor. It took me about 3.7 seconds to realize where I was. The morgue. I looked down at my now bare feet and removed the manila tag that was tied around my big toe. I have no idea what had happened to me, but I was definitely not dead. I caught my reflection in a nearby mirror mounted on the wall. I wasn't a zombie either. Then I saw the two forms rise from the gurneys behind me. Rick, Sloppy, whoever, and Debbie sat up. They were nude minus the thin sheets that covered them, but Sloppy's mohawk was unmistakable, since it was hot pink with electric blue tips. It took a minute, but I could tell they were much the same as Olivia from earlier in the evening. But their faces seemed downright friendly instead of, menacing as could possibly fucking be. You guys look like shit. Thanks, pal. You look naked. I hadn't noticed it before, but Sloppy was right. I was every bit as naked as my friends. But where I was shivering from the coldness of the room, they seemed to be as cozy as could be. My eyes darted around the room for something to cover up in, and then they fell on a plastic bin filled with my clothes, wallet. Hell, even my beat-to-shit Doc Martens were accounted for. I crossed the room and pulled on my clothes. So, what's new with you two? Well, we were ripped apart by aliens and woke up as zombies, but, doesn't feel too bad, Debbie said cheerfully. You guys don't want to eat me? Not particularly, no. Turn me into one of you? Nope, Sloppy said flatly. Well, what do you want to do? We sat at Max's drinking our stolen beer. Just me and my 2 naked zombie pals. The walk back was uneventful. This particular area of the city seemed completely abandoned. Only corpses remained. Occasionally we'd hear noises of happy crowds from deeper within the city, or footsteps close behind us or from the rooftops. But if more creatures prowled tonight, we sure as fuck didn't see them. The entire thing was very Omega Man, to be quite honest. But as previously mentioned, one with less monsters for a change, so that was a big plus. Anyway, a punk and 2 naked zombies walked into a bar. No punchline. We just walked in, stole beer, and sat at a table surrounded by corpses on a chilly New Year's Eve night. Hell, as hard as it is to believe, the new year had already begun a few hours ago. Probably between the time we were eaten by monsters and waking up as either, 1, a guy that obviously fainted at the prospect of being eaten when in fact some cosmic twist of fate called the herd home before said eating could take place, or 2, as monsters that behave absolutely nothing like monsters that made them who, in turn, were made from other monsters from space. It makes perfect sense if you're drunk or mentally ill, or a combo of the two. So we sat and drank and laughed as if absolutely nothing was off in any way. It was kinda perfect, to be honest with you. So now what? What? I mean, you two can't exactly go back home again unless everyone in your family... Fuck that. If the whole damn town was suddenly stricken blind... You know, that's kinda mean, but totally true, don't you think, Rick? Debbie asked, a little string of neon green phlegm/drool escaping from her mouth as she spoke. It does make sense. You're not going to correct her for calling you Rick? After being dead, I don't know. The nickname seems tacky now. It's not just now, kiddo, Debbie countered. Rick flipped her the bird playfully. I think the first thing we should do is assess just how far this thing spread. The rest of the city seems okay, but here, you'd think there'd be emergency crews or something, I said, looking for a TV or radio we could use. I finally located a small transistor radio behind the bar and switched it on. Only static filled the air no matter what channel I tuned to. Well, so much for that. Rick got up and wandered around the room for a minute. I think we have to consider something else, he said solemnly. Which is? Those things will be back. You can bet on that. What makes you so sure? Debbie asked, her white, pupilless eyes staring blankly. Why come all this way, rip shit up for under an hour, then just piss off back to whatever demented homeworld could spawn Space Invader rejects that turn people into zombies, most of which are hungry for human flesh, except when they aren't, like me and Deb? That seems like a solid assumption. Maybe this was like a dry run, test shit out, see how it goes, Debbie said quietly. I'd say it went swimmingly with the exception of you guys. What if we are the desired result, and the others were failures? Rick offered. No offense, but naked zombies that are no different than regular humans other than looks seems like an experiment created by an asshole convention, or just by someone that has next to zero common sense. I mean, they're aliens, presumably. Maybe their standards of intelligence are vastly different from ours. As logical as anything else that's gone on tonight. Debbie, can I talk to you in private for a moment? Ricky asked, sounding more like an adult than I've ever heard him before. Debbie and Ricky crossed to the opposite end of the room. They stood silhouetted by the stage lights that remained on. I couldn't help but wonder what in the hell was so damn important, but I didn't have a long time to contemplate as soon as they returned to the table. So, listen, man, me and Deb were just talking, and we have a proposition for you. Is this going to get weirdly sexual? Debbie and Rick laughed until they coughed up more green goo, that hung tenaciously to their cold, blue lips. No, it's more like dinner plans. Spill it. Let's say, for instance, that those cosmic creeps make a return engagement tonight. Do you think your chances of continued survival are greater or lesser given your current state? Obviously, to be like you would help, but I'm not too keen on joining the ranks of the shambling dead. We move around just fine. And we're impervious to the cold, Deb added merrily. That's all well and good, but say I agree to this. What makes you so sure I won't end up like the others? Because we aren't like that. And we'll both bite you. Better your chances that way. And then what do? Hide out. Maybe gather some weapons. If they think we're on their side, we may be able to just walk up and pop them before they know what hit them. I truly hate it when you make reasonable arguments. Is that a yes? I mean, back home is comfortable, but I can't help but think I have a greater purpose in life than being a counter jockey at a video store. Saving the whole damn planet would definitely qualify for that. Fuck. All right, I'm in. Debbie barely let out an excited yay before the biting began. When I woke up, I felt nothing. No more cold, no more warmth. Thankfully, no hunger. Eventually, we gathered some supplies, clothes, and made our way back to our van. Soon, we were headed due west as we exited the city, which, besides the few blocks we spent the night on, seemed perfectly normal in every single way. For now. We sat under the hot desert sky just outside the trailer we had shared for over 14 years. We sipped lemonade from glasses adorned with various sci-fi flick characters, more for nostalgia than anything, since we no longer required any food or drink whatsoever. As the years wore on, we became less and less sure our intergalactic enemies would ever return. But since we basically just hung out and watched TV and made music, it really didn't matter much. Until the day that changed. The saucer hovered low in the sky before releasing 3 meteors that collided with the desert floor. 3 shadow beings crossed the sand. We drew weapons we've never fired and prepared for what we guessed was coming. Except what came was vastly different than any scenario we'd imagined over the years. The beings held out their smoky hands and our weapons vanished. Didn't plan on that, Ricky whispered. Then the largest of the 3 spoke to us. Hey folks, we just want to say sorry for the trouble we caused you as children. We've done some serious growth since then and realized how childish our prank was, but we were just young punks. We all looked at each other with our cataract eyes, and it finally all made sense. The anarchy, the chaos. We, as punks, held those beliefs dear. And so did our brothers from the stars. I cracked some beers and handed them to our guests. So, what bands are you guys into? I needed that piece of feel-good fun to wrap up the year, but don't you worry, my spookies. We have a whole lot coming right up. In fact, in January, next week it starts, we have a brand new mini-series just for your fearful ears. It's in the Strickfield universe and it's called Homecoming Queen Killer. It's a 5-part mini-series you won't want to miss as we leave you in deathly suspense at the end of every show. So make sure you tune in next month and that you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app. I really can't wait to bring this to you in the new year. Also, I want to give you guys a heads up. In the new year, we're going to take a little break from Terrifying and True. Honestly, I need some rest. I really do. And I'm going to take a little time off from doing Terrifying and True. So Mondays, we're going to chill out for a minute, but you'll still have fun shows right here every Wednesday, something special on some Fridays, and of course, apparently on Sundays, there's some kind of unknown broadcast. So make sure you tune in and find out what that's all about if you haven't already. And of course, I want to say a special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Johnny Nix, John Callan, Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Jenny Green, who is returning. Thank you, Jenny, for coming back to the Patreon and helping support the program. Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. It's been an incredible ride this year, and I'm really excited to see what 2024 will bring. So now, my friends, I'm actually going to take a little break, but there will be a special show on Friday where we have a collection of all the New Year's stories of years past. But until then, my friends, for myself, for my executive producers, Rob Fields and Mark Shields, for my producer, Dan Wilder, my good buddy Ray Mattis, our composer, I will see you in the new year. Thank you so much. It's a dream come true.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.